So welcome to the Inwards and Upwards show. We've got a very special guest here tonight, or this morning, I should say, in America. We've got Sherry Diamond. I believe she's another highly sensitive human being, another empath, who's actually been through a journey of transformation, much like myself, it sounds like, because we've been in a position where people have been telling you, oh, you're way too sensitive. Oh, you're way too thoughtful. You're too moralistic. You see things that other people don't see, and all of this other stuff that we've been hurled with, been accused of being. And really, it's been a nightmare, because when you are sensitive and you do feel like that, you go, oh, is it me? Is it me? Have I got the issue? Have I got to look into my mental issues? Am I going crazy? Which I think many highly sensitive people have been through that, especially in the world today, where we've got this enormous wave of negative energy coming and washing over us. We're finding the positives inside of us and starting to empower ourselves. So I'd like to welcome Sherry Diamond, to the show tonight. How are you doing, Sherry, over there in America? It looks beautiful.
Ah, thank you. I'm so happy to be here, because you know how I feel about this subject, about you, about what you're doing. And I just can't wait to dive in. And as you know, with me, nothing is off limits.
Good stuff. Good stuff. A tough, highly sensitive human being. I like the sound of that. Okay, so really, you've got a big story to tell of what you've been through. So if you could just kind of start at the beginning, we'll have a conversation over that. I'll just ask the odd question of you, if that's okay, and we'll just go for it. So on this holistic journey you've got with your balance for life and your highly sensitive nature, where was the beginnings of this? What really started to make you think, hang on a minute, there's something different about me, which is what we all feel as highly sensitive people. So what was the first essence that you thought, wait a minute, this isn't right? So what happened with you?
Well, that's a two-part answer. And I'll tell you why. Is because I realized when I was very, very young, and I can honestly say it's when I was 3 years old, that I knew I was different than other people. And this is what happened. You know, when we look back in life, when we're trying to get better, I always say, if you keep looking backwards, you can't go forward. But in the journey, the very first time, you have to go back and look at the things that have happened in your life, and the words that were said to you, and the way people speak to you, and what has happened. And I realized, for me, when I was 3 years old, I was standing at the window of our house, like I did every day, waiting for my grandfather to come home, because we had this ritual. He took the bus home from work. I would look out of the corner of the window and I'd see him coming, and I would run outside and grab his hand, and we would go home together for like the last 500 feet. And I look forward to it every day. And this one Friday, and I remember that it was a Friday night, everybody was home. My grandma, my mom, my dad was already home from work, which, if my dad was home first before my grandpa, that meant something was wrong. And we're all waiting. And long story short, I remember looking out the window, and I looked up at the sky and I went, my grandpa's never coming home. I know it. He's never coming home. Sure enough, 20 minutes later, the police arrived and told us that my grandpa, which we should all happen to us, he got on the bus, he closed his eyes, he took a nap, and he never woke up. So what a blessing to go that way, right?
Yeah,
but that was when I had that stabbing in my gut, which most people call intuition, but it's stronger than intuition, is when you know. So fast forward from that time on, when I was 6 years old, I lost my paternal grandfather. And as I got older, I was more, as a young child, introduced to people passing away. And so that was when I realized that this is when I have like this separation, almost like abandonment issues, because being young and people leaving your life that you love is horrible. But the pain was worse than anything I ever could imagine. So then when I went through life, everything I did in life, I woke up happy every day. I would run down the stairs and turn the corner. And the first thing my mom would say is, don't talk to me. I don't want to hear you talking. Be quiet. And I was happy and ready to get up, and everybody was doing this and shutting me up, right? And that's how it was my whole life. And then as an adult, I would say, don't you feel bad for this? Don't, and people would be like, no, you feel everything. You're too sensitive. You're too nice. I think you're too nice. And I'm like, how can you be too nice? So I was always being criticized for being a good person. But I had one aunt and uncle, they were married. When I would go to their house, my uncle would say, here comes that kid. She walks through the door every day with a purpose and intention. And I was like, oh, he gets me, right? And I loved going to their house because they saw me. And my aunt, she was a little bit psychic. She had an intuition like me, where you would say, oh, yeah, this is going to happen and that's going to happen. And my mom was always the one saying, stop encouraging her to talk. She needs to shut her mouth. She's way too boisterous. She's always TOO. I was always to something. TOO. That word followed me around forever. And then when I got to be an adult, I used to say, is it me? How can it always be me? It's almost impossible. The law of averages it can't always be me. So fast forward as an adult, going through, being overweight, being told I'm too fat, I'm too sensitive, I'm too young. When I was a kid, I couldn't do anything because I was too young. And my brother was old enough because he was older than me. And there was that word following me around, TOO. So I go to the doctor when I'm 64 years old and she tells me I'm pre-diabetic. And that's when it all hit me. Like she stabbed me. It was like doing open heart surgery without giving me the medication to put me under. I felt the pain so deep. And one of the reasons is my mom was diabetic and she died of pancreatic cancer. And my mom was the one who was constantly beating it into my head that I'm too fat. She used to tell me I was fat all the time. Before she died, she made me make her a promise because I was on Weight Watchers at the time, which I had done probably, I don't know, 25 times in my life, but never succeeded because I never kept the weight off. And she made me promise that someday I would be thin. She made me promise that on her deathbed. And I said to her, Mommy, I'm going to make you that promise. But what I cannot promise you is when. So my mom died when I was 52. Fast forward to when I'm 64 and I get the diagnosis. And that's what changed everything in my life, why I'll never go back to being heavy, why I know how to keep my weight off, and why I know that I was put here to help other people do the same thing.
Yeah, so it's quite a tough story with your mother. How did you find that kind of almost feels like a love-hate relationship, i.e. she felt possibly intimidated by you, maybe, or how do you feel that she perceived you, that she had to keep you at arm's distance? What was that perception that you had of her?
Well, see, my mom, I thought my mom was the best thing since peanut butter and jelly. Right? I loved
I used to
her.
enjoy that as well.
I loved her like no other human in my life. And I say it to this day that God in the universe sent me to the right family because I had amazing parents that taught me a lot about life, about being a good person, how to navigate in life. But it was kind of push me, pull me. It was, you can do anything you want, but you have to do what we say. And you can do this, but there was always a but comma, right? I couldn't just be free to be me. It always came with a price. And so by the time I got older, I could see where in my life, really what I was looking for all the time was this emotional connection with people. Because I got the love, but I didn't get the emotional stuff that I needed because they're calling me fat and you don't do that when you emotionally are invested in somebody's well-being. You just don't. But I'm not mad at them for it because this is what they know, right? They did the best they could. And I'm going to say that being the kind of kid that I was, I listened, but I didn't embrace everything I was told because I knew there was something better on the other side, but I just didn't know what it was. But I did realize when I was 14 years old that when I got old enough, I was going to leave home, because where I was living and the space I was in was going to eat me up alive. And by the time I left Cleveland, Ohio, where I was born, when I was 20, I tell people what's happening is I felt like I was drowning. And every year the water was like this. And if I didn't get out, I would have sunk.
So if now you looking back, you can see the reasons why these experiences happened to you to shape you to where you are today. Yeah.
As I've said to you before, I know every shift in my life, every TV show I watched, every song that I heard, every word that was said to me, everything that happened, because I feel it so deeply in my soul. I know exactly why I say, do, think, and act about everything in my life. I know why. And
Yes.
once you can get to that place, there isn't anything in life that you can't accomplish, but you have to do the work. And that's what people are afraid of. We want everything to come to us, but we don't want to do the work. And when I think back, things that people said to me, like just silly things, like everything in moderation, things like that, I'd be like, oh, everything in moderation. How can you do everything in moderation when I'm addicted to sugar? I love chocolate. I like food. Like, how do you do that? That's crazy. But it's not crazy. I just wasn't ready to hear it.
I was the same with Jack Daniels, saying you got to drink that in moderation. I'm going, what does that mean? What's it mean? But it's true. It shapes you. So you got into this. You created this balance for life, right, with the food. How did you start with that? What was your beginnings? Because I think most people just don't know where to start with food when it comes. They just used to the well, it's garbage. A lot of the stuff is garbage that we're fed as food. Is called food, but you can walk in. I walk into a supermarket now and literally, as soon as I go past the fresh fruit and vegetables, I go, "Where's the food?" There's no food. There's like aisles and aisles and aisles of this stuff that's just all processed and got so many carcinogens and pathogens in it. I can't say too much because this is going onto YouTube because it will get pulled off. But how did you start with your journey? What was the beginning steps when you were diagnosed with that diabetes?
So that day that the doctor diagnosed me, I remember I said to her, okay, so what do you suggest that I do? Well, you need to lose some weight. Well, duh, I could have told you that, right? That's not helping. And I said, well, is there anything that you recommend? She goes, try to eat better, exercise more, all that stuff. And I went home, and on the way home, I was thinking, okay, this is crazy. She's the doctor. I'm asking her to help me, and she's telling me to do what everybody says. So how do I stop from doing this? And I said to her, what happens if in a year or so I haven't lost enough weight? She goes, well, right now you're at the point where you don't have to take any medication, but if it doesn't get better, you'll probably have to go on a pill. And eventually, if you don't do well, you'll have to take insulin. And I was like, oh, that's not a good plan, right? The plan isn't just go home and figure it out, and then you can take medication or you can take insulin. And that really bothered me because all I could do is think about my mom. Because I remember when my mom had diabetes, and she also had high blood pressure, and she had cholesterol problems, and she had one of those pill boxes that so many people have that says Sunday through Saturday with all the medication you're supposed to take. And I'd say to her, why are you taking this pill? The doctor told me to. Well, why do you take this pill? I think it's for my high blood pressure. And one day I said to her, Mom, if the doctor told you to go to the top of your apartment building and jump off the building because you'll feel better, would you do it? I mean, why are you taking medication that you don't know about? So that went through my head. So I sat down and I just opened up my laptop and I Googled, why do we get diabetes and high blood pressure? And I just, like, for 2 hours, I sat at my computer, and literally, I'm not lying to you, the word that kept popping up is inflammation. the food that we eat, you know, how our bodies process food and how our bodies process insulin or not. And that's really the key, is what goes on inside. Because look, I've been on Weight Watchers enough times that I could take you, me, and your wife on a trip around the world 3 times. No lie. But they never taught me, they taught me what to eat and buy our food, buy our processed food, all the bars and all the snacks. And so I did. So I'd lose a pound or 2 every week, and, you know, bravo to me, but I never kept it off longer than a year or 2. And then I start seeing this cycle in my head of my life coming forward. So I start diving into what foods cause inflammation, everything was about what causes inflammation. And when I looked at it, I was like, I eat every one of these things. And there were some things that you learn at Weight Watchers because they're vegetables or they're fruit, but they're not good for you. They cause you problems. And just because they're low in calorie and they look like fruit or vegetables doesn't mean you should eat them, especially if you're pre-diabetic. So that's what I did. And I started writing about it and writing about it and writing about it. And in 18 months, I decided to start eating all these foods. And in 18 months, I lost 103 pounds. So I was like, okay, so if this can work for me, who has a thyroid problem, right? And he used to say, oh, well, I have a thyroid problem. So hard to lose weight. No, it's not. Not if you eat the right food. And here I am. You know, I just celebrated my 70th birthday, and I'm so happy that I'm going into this next decade or 2 in the healthiest body I've ever had, in the cleanest brain I've ever developed. And it's all because of the food. And because I learned how to internalize and get rid of all the nonsense in my life that was stopping me. And the only person that will ever stop you in your life, I don't care what you've been told, how you grow up, where you live, on what continent, it's always going to be you. It's us.
Most definitely. Yeah, I've got a burning question inside of me right now. Can you get a refund from Weight Watchers and take us on that worldwide tour 3 times on the boat?
Never, because they'd owe me hundreds of
joking.
thousands of dollars.
I'm joking.
And I'd be booking
Because we're looking forward to it.
in a minute. No, because every time you go,
yeah,
it's to sign up. It's between $30 and $50 for 6 or 8 weeks. And you do that 500 times in your life. I mean, honestly, I went on Weight Watchers when I was in my 20s, and I stopped going when I was in my 60s. So I did it on and off for 40 years.
Yeah.
And then I did all these other fad diets, and I went on Jenny Craig, and you know, it's just insanity. And along the way, all I did is procrastinate the progress of getting healthy. But you know what? Here's what I'm going to say. I say this about everything. Everything in my life that I'm supposed to have comes to me when I'm supposed to get it. And everything I'm not supposed to have gets taken away from me when it's time to learn that lesson, why it shouldn't be here.
Yeah, I'll get that. So what are the major culprits then for inflammation with food? What's the major culprits? What are the worst things that we can eat to cause
sugar?
Sugar, yeah.
You know,
fizzy drinks, I would say.
Well, one of the things that's going to kill a lot of people in our world, especially in this country, are energy drinks.
Oh God, yes.
So energy drinks, if you go and look at the ingredients, half of them you can't even pronounce. And the other half, when you drink them, it's like smoking cigarettes, only you're drinking them. After years and years and years of this buildup, eventually it causes plaque inside of you. And at some point, you could have a stroke or a heart attack. Because the plaque is building up inside your body, right? So sugar is terrible. People who have diabetes, I know they go to classes and they teach you about the level of eating carbs with fiber and calories. But I am going to say that the bread and the wheat is another thing. Not only is it hurting you if you have diabetes, but it's causing people other problems like sinus problems. People who have any kind of bronchial sinus, that mucus that's up here in our body, should not be eating wheat. They should not be drinking oat milk. All these things that are so healthy for us, not.
No, yeah, we found that with them. I mean, I don't touch. What about ancient grains? We do eat ancient grains in our household. They don't seem to cause us any issues. If you looked
Like
into
what?
spelt flour, we also use buckwheat
So
and
I'm a big
rye flour.
no rice
Right,
at all.
right. No rice.
No white rice, no brown rice. Rice turns into sugar like that.
Yeah,
So there's a saying, if it's white, it's not right.
yeah,
Okay, that causes inflammation. Diet soda, awful, causes inflammation. And people say, oh, well, I just have it once in a while. But how many once in a whiles are there in life? A lot of them, right?
yeah,
I once in a while eat a piece of chocolate, but I eat dark chocolate,
yeah,
right? So that once in a while is okay, but not if you're putting the wrong food in there, because everything in moderation, everybody says, well, what if I die tomorrow? I have to be able to eat the rice or the bread. But if you stop eating the rice and the bread, you'll probably live longer and you won't have to worry about if you die tomorrow.
yeah,
What if we turn that thought process upside down and turn it on its head?
yeah, yeah. No, I agree with you because to me it was really, really hard to change my diet when I started to move it. It's like because I decided to become vegetarian many, many years ago, and I was fixated on protein. Where'd you get your protein from? It was always hammered into me. But the reason I wanted to become vegetarian is because of James French's work, who does this amazing clearing the neocortex of the brain and actually starting to heal animals. And that's how I used to be as a child, because I had awful trouble with my brothers and also my father a little bit, but he was more understanding of me. They kept on having a go at me because I was sensitive, so I kept on going to the animals, and I could sit with the animals, and the animals would be the animals. They would be sort of reliable every time I went to see them, and that's why I really had a big affiliation with animals when I was younger. And seeing James French's work now is incredible, because he seems to have taken that a step further. What I experienced, he's actually he's done it, doing it for a living. But it took me months and months and months to wheedle it down to tiny little bits of meat in tins of spaghetti, which wasn't particularly healthy. But I was eating that once a month, thinking I don't need to eat them at all. And I found a way of actually getting protein in to the body without eating meat, and it worked for me. I felt a lot lighter and clearer and better. But it is a problem, because we've been conditioned to eat in a certain way. Like I see babies being given Coca-Cola, feeding babies into Coca-Cola. To me, that now looks as bad as giving them Jack Daniels, personally, because I'm thinking that is such a toxin. So what would you say is the best suggestion to try and change somebody's mindset towards food? Because it's difficult. It is difficult because we have been conditioned, but it's important to actually hear your perspective on that, I feel.
Well, before I answer that question, I do want to go back to what you were just talking about how you were changing your eating, and about the bread and the wheat. Is my suggestion to everybody is to eat everything with almond flour, coconut flour, if you can. Those are the two cleanest flours that you could bake with, you can cook with. There's so many things on the market you can use. You can make your own bread. The other thing that you said about being a vegetarian, I'm not a vegetarian, but I'm a pescatarian. And I am going to say that I didn't eat meat for about 30 years. And then when I first started Balance for Life, I only ate grass-fed beef, but then it started to bother me. So I stopped eating it. But every once in a while, I get this craving for it. And a nutritionist and my doctor both told me that when you get a craving for a food that you can't stop thinking about it for more than 24 hours, sometimes that's a sign your body is craving the iron or the vitamin or whatever is in there. So if that ever happens, I will once in a while eat a grass-fed beef like Wagyu beef because it makes me feel better. But I'm not a vegetarian because you don't have to be, because there's so many, but if it makes you feel better, then do it. There's days I don't even eat any fish because I'm eating other things. Like I love tempeh. Tempeh is a beautiful source of protein. Okay, so to answer your question about what should people do, the first thing you have to sit down and really do is you have to be honest with yourself. Like for me, you know, I'm a big believer in signs. When you see signs, and I don't mean signs like billboards, I mean billboards, signs, people, things that are coming at you and they're repetitive. Those are signs that you need to keep looking at in your life and ask yourself, why? Do I like feeling like this every day? Do I want to be pre-diabetic? Do I want to be fat the rest of my life? Do I want to feel complete in my body? And you have to be able to change your mindset, because one of the things that we do is it's always, yeah, but I know I'll do this. No, but I got to wait till the kids go to school. Yeah, but it's so difficult because of my job. And so what we're really all doing in our life is we're giving away all of our energy to everyone and everything else in our life, because that's what we think we need to do to please everybody. And the only one who's suffering is us.
Mm.
So you have to ask yourself, if I stay on this path for the next 30 days, will I feel better? What if I change? What if I this? What if I try? Why don't you just try? And that's one of the reasons why, as you know, when people are interested in my program, I have a consultation with them. You can't just go on my website and sign up for my program, because you can't, because I won't let you. And the reason is because it's just like signing up for Weight Watchers. I don't know if you're going to succeed, but you're going to give it a go. But I want you to succeed. So I need to know that if I'm going to help you and invest in you, are you going to change your mindset? And when I give you suggestions about what you need to do in life, is it going to be, yeah, I know, but I'm going on vacation and I have to go on vacation? Well, go on vacation. But let me teach you how to go on vacation and eat properly. So when you come home from vacation, you don't feel horrible.
Mm. So
because what happens is as you clean out your insides, your microbiome, and your brain automatically, as you know, gets cleaner. And then when you start to introduce all the bad food again, your body will react to you and start showing you why it's no longer going to tolerate it. Yeah. And that's really when you have to decide, do you want to go forward in a healthy body, or do you want to take medication the rest of your life? Because you don't.
No, it's a big choice for people to take. But the reason I'm vegan really is because I don't want to hurt or harm anything, and I don't really like death. I came to that when I was really getting into Ki Gong and meditation, and after having out-of-body experiences, I wanted to try and think, how do I get back to that place? That place is so beautiful and blissful. But what Ki Gong actually taught me was to come back into the body and experience that in the physical world. But I even have a problem with what's going on inside of my body. There's like death and destruction, and I realize it's part of living in the material world. So I try to make my choices as peaceful as possible. But I do accept people eat meat, people eat cheese and stuff like that, and I do accept when people are honest about it as well. I respect that more than people say, "Well, I'd love to be a vegan, but, or I'd love to be a vegetarian, but." Don't need the buts. Just say, I'm not. That's not my choice. That's fine. I'm okay with that. But I still would love to see animals being treated a lot better. And I think they're just passing legislation in this country to stop live exports into Europe, which is the most horrendous things that these poor little things can go through. Which is
important. And what I want people to say is, I would love to be healthy. Forget about being vegan. or any of that. You know, when people say, oh, well, is your program about keto? And is yours about Whole30? And is yours? No, mine is about clean food.
Where,
Clean food, and that's it.
where do you think this came from? Because I've never got to the bottom of it, and I'm absolutely fascinated with it, because I had this when I started to try and become more healthy, especially around a group of boys, is, oh, that's a bit healthy, isn't it? What's the matter with you? Where did this attitude, this mindset come from, that people go, if you're trying to eat well, people just actually pull you down for it? It's like the weirdest thing. And then we kind of go into this numbness trance of just shoving stuff in our mouths. And I see that now when I'm walking in Kingston, my local town, or in Surbiton or wherever. They're just walking along, just going. They're not really conscious of what they're doing. They're like in the numbness trance. So where do you think this mindset of looking at people in a bad way because they want to be healthy, where do you think that came from?
Well, I think some of it is, you know, I say this all the time, how you're socialized as a kid with food
Yes.
and what you think in your head as an adult is going to be the definition of your life. And that's really where it starts. I mean, look, in America, there are so many different aspects of what's going on with kids with food. There's some people who they're, you know, hardworking families that go to work every day. They don't make a lot of money and they can only provide so much food for their kids. So they go for the food that's less expensive. And I can't blame them, because is it my kids have to eat, or do I make my kids starve because I can't afford the better food? And the other thing I'm going to say is they can't afford the other food, because we have stores. I don't know if you have them in the UK, but we have stores. They're called 99-cent stores. Everything is $1, between $1 and $2 or $3. That's it. You can buy fresh produce. You can buy eggs. You can buy vegetables. You can buy fruit. You can buy everything. You can go to these stores if you want to, but some people don't have time. They, you know, they work a lot. They don't have the money. So there's that problem. Then there's groups of families where the kids are being run around to all these activities and they don't have time. So they're giving them bars, you know, different kind of snack bars that are healthy, that don't have a lot of sugar. And they're carting them from activity to activity. So they drive through McDonald's because it's quicker. So it starts like that. And, you know, I have to say, I was one of those people that you used to walk by shoveling the food in. I was that person sitting in the restaurant eating the hamburger and French fries, and then I had to have chocolate cake for dessert. So, right. So I understand both sides of it because I lived both sides of it. And what I would say is, with everything, is that you have to just try and implement. When you go to the grocery store, that same food that you're buying for $2.50, that's you're going to throw in the microwave, that's processed. Look in the produce department and the fruit department for that same $2.50, and I'm telling you, you can buy a lot more food. So it's really, there's no real answer except I want to, I will, and I'm going to try. And the other thing is that I think a lot of people, and I can only equate it to me, is when I was losing weight or trying to, there weren't a lot of other people around me doing the same thing because they weren't overweight like me. So now the stigma is me, right? Because she's too fat and she's overweight, and, you know, what are people going to think? And it's that kind of thing. So when you're alone in it and you feel like you're the only one, it's hard to move forward because people are constantly criticizing us. So I got criticized as a kid for putting my hand in the cookie jar after school, but go to a family function or a wedding and everybody's eating bad food. Oh yeah, let's live it up and eat all the bad food because everybody's doing it. So I had a terrible, terrible upbringing with food. Food was not my friend. Food was where I went to stuff my feelings.
Mm. So how much do you think so emotional childhood wounds are soothed by eating? Because it's like an addiction, isn't it? It can be like an addiction, like drinking or even smoking or any drug intake. Food can be like an addiction. So how much do you think
That's
that
where you
was?
feel better.
Yes, comfort eating, isn't it? It's called comfort eating.
Right.
How much was that part of your eating issues, do you think? Comfort eating.
Oh, more than 50%.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when I was, um, let's see, in my 20s, and I was living on my own, I was not really that overweight. I was a little chubby, and people say full figured, but I wasn't like full blown overweight fat, right? But then when I was in my 30s and 40s, especially my 40s, that was the decade where it was the most miserable for my weight. And I was at an all-time high of 250 pounds. And I was walking up the stairs to my apartment one day, and I literally couldn't catch my breath, and I was scared to death. So I decided that I really need help trying to curtail my intake of food because I can't do it on my own. I felt helpless and paralyzed. So I went to therapy, and we found out that my socialization of a kid with food and my mother constantly calling me fat was why I was there at 40 years old, and why I could go to Weight Watchers and never succeed. And all the whys came up. And then I went home and I called my mom, because I lived in Los Angeles, a suburb of Los Angeles, and my mom lived in Cleveland. And I called her up and I told her, I just went to therapy and this is what I learned. And starting today, you have to stop calling me fat, because if you say the word to me one more time, I promise you, mommy, I swear to you, I will never talk to you again, ever. And her first reaction is, don't talk to me that way. I'm your mother. I said, I am going to talk to you that way because you have to take responsibility. That part of this is your fault. It's not all mine. And I was mad. And do you know, from that day on, she never said the word ever again, except before she died. She never said the word fat. She just said, I want you to promise me that you'll get thin. And here's what I'm going to tell you. I know as sure as I know my name is Sherry and that your name is Peter. As soon as I lost the weight and I started my Balance for Life course, and to this day, right now, where we're at, everything wonderful that happened in my life is because my mom knows. And she said, okay, you made that promise. And she opened up with myself and the universe and some guidance. She opened up all the goodness that I have in my life today. And there's people who think I'm absolutely out of my brain, bonkers, and should be locked up in a room somewhere. But I don't care, because it's true. And it's only going to get better.
Yeah. So we got a very everybody's everybody here is highly sensitive. What advice would you give to highly sensitive human beings to open up themselves and be blossom, shine like they should be? Empaths and highly sensitive people should shine, right? This is my big thing. So what would you say? Because you've just been through, you just explained that journey of saying no more, stop, right? And then that stopped, and now you've had this revelation, like, yeah, everything's looking after me. And that's what happens. You get this role of a life that happens to start to unfold in front of you. You go, this is pretty good, actually. I'm enjoying this. So it's what advice would you give to highly sensitive people, your fellow highly sensitives and empaths? What advice would you to find that role in their life, to try and stave off this negativity that can happen to us quite easily?
Well, I think there's so many things, and I'm going to tell you what they are. But the most important thing, because this is, when I look back, this has carried me my whole life. Like that day that I was standing at the window and I knew my grandfather had died. I knew it because there's this, it's like somebody is in your belly, like right in your duodenal area. And you feel this, boom. It's like somebody went like this and poked you with their finger. And whenever you feel that poke, that is your intuition, and you should listen to it. So when someone says, Like when I was younger, people would say, oh, come on, let's go to this person's house. It'll be fine. And I'd be like, no, I don't think I want to go, because I get that feeling. I always listened. So that has stayed with me forever, because I'm very, very sensitive to people's energy. But I wasn't as sensitive when I was younger, but I listened to my intuition. Now that I'm older and I've cleaned out all the inflammation in my brain and my body, I still to this day have to remind myself, but it's different, because now I say to myself as an adult, really? Is this really me? Do I behave this way? Or are they projecting this on me because I'm shining a light on them? And that's really what happens to a lot of empaths. We get people try to shrivel us down because we're always too much, too sensitive, too. And what's funny is we're always TOO something, right? And everybody wants us to change. But how many people go, hey, maybe I should look at that and embrace who we are? Not very much. So it's always us. It's not always us. And that's what you have to learn. You have to ask yourself, is it me? Did I participate in this? Because if I did, then I have to figure out how to stop it. But if I didn't, then you just have to move on.
Yeah,
because you can't, it's like trying to tell an alcoholic or a drug addict that they need to stop. You can't, because they have to hit rock bottom on their own.
Yeah, it's like a karmic cycle. Which what I always say is not to react, but respond to your life in front of you. Because if you start to react, you're creating another karmic loop for yourself anyway. And there's millions and millions of these going out in and out of you all the time. And we need to be discerning of what comes in, because we process everything so much. You've got to be so careful, because otherwise you're just processing for days and days with the same scenario going round and round your head. You go, this is driving me nuts. And that is one issue. When we're on the flip side, the wrong side of being highly sensitive, that can be really devastating to you. And that's my big thing, is we should respond to life rather than react to it. Because if we start to react to people who come in, that you start that karmic process again towards them, and you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that, because your brain is so intelligent, because you have a deeper sensory perception of things, which is what highly sensitive is. It's a sensory perception that's deeper than other people, which is why we feel, is there something wrong with me? Because other people aren't seeing that. I had the same with when my mother died. I knew straight away, the day I came back from school. I was 11 years of age, and I knew she's gone. She's gone. Oh my goodness, she's gone. And I was shocked that I felt that before I even walked in, before anyone said anything to me. She's gone. And then they sat down and said, your mother's passed on. I didn't even cry. I was like in shock, because I'm thinking, how did I know this? And my little brother fell into tears, and it took me a few days to process it, to think about, how did I know something in me, my intuition, that she passed on. And I get that. I've had that a few times in my life, when you go, well, how did I know that? And then people go, well, how did you know that? And I said, well, I don't know how I know that. It's about tuning into yourself, which is why I'm such an enormous advocate of Ki Gong and eating well. Both things is I think that it's tuning your body up. Your body is much more energetic than we realize, and everything is connected within itself. And when you tune up your energy body, which is always, or if not more important than your physical body, you tune in to a bigger field of energy, which tunes in to the whole universe. We're connected to everything. And I came up with this thought the other day, where you have spores going around space, right? And they come into this planet, and they can be from the Pleiades or the Arcturian star cycle, or even Sirius. And these are coming in and formulating into our material bodies. So I feel at this time we're starting to connect more on the material level with our bodies, as well as the spiritual level. So our physical body is really important. So actually building the body up with the right food and the right energy will help us connect more spiritually, which is why it's more profound to do this right at this time, because we're going through an enormous change where the veil's being lifted. That's what the Armageddon or apocalypse means. Apocalypto means the lifting of the veil. We're seeing all the corruption with all the presidents, all the prime ministers, all the Davos, all the World Economic Forum, all these jokers. I'm going to rule the world, you know. And you're thinking, no, you're not. You're not going to go anywhere near the world. We're going to rule the world. Highly sensitive people will take this over, which is what Forbes magazine have even predicted that. So it's important for us to realize what we can do as human beings and being highly sensitive and have the courage to speak your convictions and say, no, enough is enough. This is where I draw the line. I'm not taking this anymore. Yeah. So it's important. Any
But
last thoughts?
You said something that I really want to touch on that's so important about what you said about reacting. When I was younger, I lived in reactive mode. I was always reacting, and it was because of how I felt inside.
Yes.
Right? Because I wanted people to listen because they were constantly shutting me up. And I wanted people to understand because they kept telling me I'm too sensitive. So I was always doing this, right?
Yes.
And then I learned how to live in proactive mode.
Yes.
And no longer in reactive mode. And I know how to recognize when people are trying to send me into proactive mode. And once you eat cleaner and you think clearer, all that stuff is easy to manage, but you have to start. I am going to say it doesn't not only start with how you feel about yourself, but food is imminent when it comes to changing and becoming healthy for a long time.
Very true. So how do people get hold of you? They want to go further with the conversation with you. How do they get hold of you? What's your website?
So my website is sharethegift.com. It's SHER, which are the first 4 letters of my name. And the reason I chose that is because really that's my tagline is I want to share the gift of health with everyone, because we don't have to be sick and we don't have to take medication. And if you can catch it in time, it all can be changed, because there is a time in our life where if you're taking medication for 10, 20, 30 years, you might not be able to get rid of it, but you might, but you have to try. So everybody can contact me there. You can go to my Balance for Life group on Facebook. It's Balance, the number 4 and Life. And you can join the group. I talk about all kinds of subjects. I post recipes. But if you want a free consultation to talk about getting on a healthy journey and how I can help you, the best thing is to go to my website. Go to my email, sharethegift@gmail.com, and set up a 15-minute consultation. And I'll decide if you're ready, and you'll decide if you can do it. And I'm going to tell you that the thing I'm the most proud of that I can say out loud without being a liar is that in the 3 years I've had my program, nobody has asked for their money back.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
So I must be doing something correct.
I think you are. I think you are. So yeah, because especially in America now, you got 1 in 2 children becoming chronically ill, suffering from some chronic illness. 1 in 2 children. That's disgraceful.
The childhood diabetes in this country is astounding.
Anyways, thank you so much for shining your light. I'm gonna stop the recording now. We'll just take some questions from the panel. So thank you very much, Sherry.
Thank you.